All right, hello, POLSCI004. This is the third theory that we're going to need to go over for this class. So this is the third of the three theories. First theory was realism, second was interdependence, last one is world systems. So in this, realism is the world as the hard, cruel world that it is. Interdependence is cooperation. World systems looks at it from the Marxist perspective. And I'll go through this fast. I know it'll be fast for you. Good thing it's a video. You can go through it. And I might skip some stuff because I don't want to make this too long. This paradigm is also known as the radical globalist or new Marxist theory. So it deals with Marxism, socialism, communism. Classes and divisions between them define and determines the course of international politics. So instead of the world is a cruel place, you can't trust anybody outside your borders, which is realism. Cooperation, which is interdependence. Now we look at classes, rich versus poor. And that's what world systems is built on, the struggles between classes. For important context, economic factors are the driving force of international politics. Why do multinational corporations go overseas? Is to exploit workers. That's the main job of the multinational corporations. Political military power are the direct result of the economic strength of the dominant class. So however rich your country is, it's going to be able to afford a strong military. So the richer you are, the stronger you're going to be. The development of the capitalist world economy and how it both creates and perpetuates uneven development between advanced capitalist states and poor. So the advanced capitalist states take advantage of the small states and they develop faster than the poor states. International class structure is in which the advanced industrialized states in the center of the world capitalist system dominate and exploit poorer states, occupying the periphery of the system. So the periphery would be the poor states, the core states would be the rich states. And transnational class coalitions represent the primary actors in international politics. Rich across borders are the same rich, poor across the borders are the same poor. States are agents of the dominant class. States will do what the rich want them to do. And multinational corporations allow capitalist elites to maintain the exploitative economic links. So, the multinational corporations will prop up governments that will allow them to make as much profit as possible and extract resources from poor countries. So the structure and process of international relations is largely the result of the struggle between rich and poor countries over control and distribution of resources. We tend to take resources from the poor countries and not really compensate them fairly, according to world system theorists. North-South conflict. Most of your rich countries are in the northern hemisphere. Most of your poor countries are in the southern hemisphere. The United States is northern hemisphere, Europe, northern hemisphere, China, northern hemisphere. Your poor states, your African nations, your South American nations, Central American nations are all in the southern hemisphere. So conflict arises by the clash of opposing economic interests, rich, again, versus poor. Namely, between the clash between capitalist and non-capitalist states. Or as a result of capitalist states attempting to increase their wealth and power through imperialist foreign policies. When we say imperialist foreign policies, we're talking about colonialism, taking over and exploiting that colony for all it's worth, which the British did do. They take India and exploit the labor, exploit the goods within India. Same thing with China, same thing with the United States, before they were the United States. So states are important actors in this theory. So the dominant class exerts significant influence and often controls government policymakers. Because they can pay, they can lobby, they can ask them to do what the rich want them to do. So states act in accordance with the wishes of the dominant economic class within the state. If the dominant class is capitalist. So states' foreign policy will be oriented to enhance the wealth and influence the capitalist state. We go and open up Mexico so we can exploit Mexico. We want free trade. So, as an example of this, in the 1950s, the U.S. after World War II had comparative advantage over everybody else in the world, so they wanted free trade, so we could sell our goods to other countries and bring that profit back home. Same thing. This is what world systems theorists believe is happening today. We open up China so that we can exploit the Chinese worker and make products at a cheaper rate and sell them at a higher cost, and then that's just sheer profit. Multinational corporations, MNCs, are very important for world systems theorists as well. They're mechanisms by which the capitalist class penetrates the poor countries. Apple goes into China to exploit the workers in China. They exploit lesser developed countries as a source of cheap labor and inexpensive natural resources. Would you rather pay an American $15 a day, or would you rather pay a Chinese worker 5 cents a day? So, which as a company would you want? MNCs transfer profit from lesser developed states to the base of operations in advanced capitalist states. So yes, where does most of that money that Apple makes in profits go to? It goes to the United States because Apple is based out of the United States. So they extract that wealth out of China and bring it to the United States. The profits enable the capitalist class to increase global influence and sustain dominant position in the world. So that's how the rich stay rich and the poor get poor. So Marxism, the driving force of history, is the struggle between economic classes, struggle between rich and poor, the haves and have-nots. Dialectical materialism. So when we talk about Marxism, we talked about economic liberalism. We talked about mercantilism. Marxism is an economic theory as well. When we talk about Adam Smith is way on the right. Free trade, open markets, free markets, so on. In the middle is John Maynard Keynes. We talked about him last video. And then Marxism is way on the left. So Maynard Keynes is in the middle, Marx is on the left. So Marx wants full government control over businesses or the economy. So the dialectical Marxism, history moves through stages. For Marx, there are 5 stages of human society. The first society would be hunters and gatherers. The easiest way to get your means of production, your food, is to hunt and gather it, right? But then agriculture comes along. Agriculture is a more efficient way to get your food. So you have violent revolution between hunters and gatherers, and agriculture wins. But then what becomes an easier way to get your food? Well, you can buy it. You can make extra and sell it at a profit. So capitalism becomes the 3rd stage of dialectical Marxism. The 4th stage becomes socialism. The rich get richer and the poor get poorer. So the poor will rise up and overthrow the capitalist class, and then we have a socialist society, and then you peacefully move to communism from socialism, where we all share things equally, according to Marx. So transition from one stage to the next is often prompted by the struggle between economic classes, as well as by the development and spread of technology. So again, like agriculture, this, rotating fields, fences, dogs, that's crude technology, but still, that's technology. And then that, because it's more efficient, becomes a better way to get what you need. So in the capitalist phase, human interaction is characterized by the strong exploiting the weak. The rich get richer and the poor get poorer. The struggle between the oppressed and the oppressors. The poor trying to overthrow the rich. The 99% versus the 1%, right? Marx divided the capitalist society into 3 classes. Those 3 classes, you have the dominant class, which are wealthy capitalists. Owns and controls the means of production. Controls, per se, food. Controls and exploits the other classes and amass even greater wealth and power. So that's their main job, is to try to amass greater wealth and power. The proletariat, nothing more than wage slaves, your factory workers, paid subsistence wages and exploited by the capitalist factory owners. So you're paid 30 cents an hour to do work, and you could lose fingers, you can lose your arm doing this dangerous job just to make money for the dominant class. You're exploited as a wage slave. And the last class, the lowest class, is the peasants. They work the land. So capitalist landowners exploit peasant farm labor in return for allowing the peasantry to live on the land. So, just like the word says, peasants. You work the land to be able to live there. Imperialism. So this imperialism, we're looking at colonialism, expanding empires. Classical imperialism, policy of expanding a state's power and authority by conquering and controlling territories called colonies. So Great Britain controlled colonies all around the world. The sun never sets on the British Empire because they had control of all over territory, all over the world. Expanding their control. The idea is the search for cheap labor and raw materials. The United States was colonies, right? So what was exploited from the United States? Tobacco, cotton. Those things are exploited from the United States, taken from Britain, and then sold to the dominant class. And then they could sell it back to the colonists at a higher rate and exploit the workers even more. Designed to increase the wealth and power of strong states at the expense of weaker states. So Britain was the strong state. They control a lot of colonies, and then they control the weaker states like India and China. Lenin comes about because what happens in Marxism, Marx theorized that the most advanced society would fall. But why weren't advanced societies falling to socialism, to the socialist stage of the Marxist dialectic? Well, Lenin comes along and comes up with the idea that really imperialism is the highest stage of capitalism. If the British worker's not feeling the pain, they're not going to rise up and overthrow the dominant class. Who's feeling the pain in British colonies? The colonists are. Not the colonists, the people that live within that colony are being exploited. Not the actual British worker, but the people that live in colonies are being exploited. So that's why Lenin calls it the highest stage of capitalism. In order to survive, capitalism needs to constantly expand. They need to keep growing. So they need to take more and more and more colonies. So European countries have already exploited their own workers. So for Lenin, what Lenin says is that you need to bring about revolution. You need to go into the factories and have people rise up and overthrow the capitalist class. So it can't happen because of imperialism. You can't have a move to socialism from capitalism because colonialism or imperialism is allowing it to survive. So Lenin says you must rise up and get rid of it yourselves. Now expand and take colonies and exploit the poor nations that are now under their control. Since most of the world has been colonized, imperialist countries can only take from other imperialist countries. Hence you have, for Lenin, you have World War I. Germany there's no more territory to take, so what do? They go to war with Britain to try to take their colonies. Britain and France. So for Lenin, World War I was the final stage of capitalist imperialism. Dependency theory. Probably do want to go over dependency theory. Asserts that trade, foreign investment, and even foreign aid between advanced industrialized countries and poor, less developed states is inherently exploitive. We give money to poor countries to keep them under our thumb. We keep giving them loans that they can't pay off, and we then we just control more and more and more. So for dependency, you are making them dependent on you. So when you say dependency theory, we're trying to keep rich countries are trying to keep poor countries dependent on them. You need more money? Okay, we'll give you more money even though you didn't pay off this loan. We'll give you more. Works to the disadvantage of poor nations. They just keep borrowing money because they think that's the way to develop. And it's really just a way of keeping them held down, according to world systems theorists. Perpetuates the dependency of these less developed countries. Uneven development. Propensity of capitalism to create and perpetuate an equal dispersal of global wealth and prosperity. Only certain countries will remain prosperous and develop, where other countries, the rich countries, will try to keep them poor, because if they were to advance, then they would become a threat to the power base. Neo-imperialism used to describe the less overt control now exercised by the North over exports and raw materials in developing nations. So instead of conquering those places, we just hold them under our thumb and hold trade surpluses with them. The capitalist world system divides states into three categories. You have the core, which is the wealthy states. You have the periphery, which is the poor, which we talked about earlier, and then the semi-periphery, less developed. So the core just tries to keep its wealth. The periphery is the poor, and then your lesser developed countries, maybe like Australia, they're just not, they're in between. So I'm not going to go over these. You can go over these so that you know for the test. Because I am, over time, I'm sure by now, talking about all of this. Alright, so summarize components of world system theory, the focus of analysis, the capitalist world system. Major actors, of course, the states. States is in all of them. And the class coalitions, rich, poor, multinational corporations, international organizations. Components of the behavior states is the class struggle, rich versus poor. Accumulation of wealth for capitalist class. The goals of states, enhance wealth of the capitalist class. The view of human nature, selfish and dominating but reformable. Conditions of the international system, the domination of the capitalist world system. Cycle of exploitation and dependency. Your key concepts: capitalist world system, the class struggle, dependency theory, imperialism, transnational class coalitions, and uneven development. So you should know all of those for the upcoming test. If you have any questions, I will have my office hours Monday through Friday from 10 to 11. I will be doing a video on a study guide to help you for the test and what to prepare for. And we'll talk to you at that. All right, talk to you later. Bye.